Everybody, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Debbie, would you please take roll?
Committeeman Marino.
Here.
Committeeman Ray.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Dorsey.
Here.
Mayor Pasurch.
Present. So what we're going to do is just skip ahead a little bit and go right to the consent agenda. Debbie, should we do the whole consent agenda?
Just vote the consent agenda and then we can swear in officer.
Any questions about the consent agenda, or?
I'd like to add one resolution to the consent agenda, appointing the tax collector. Is it David Griffith? I sent Debbie
Yes,
a resolution.
David, yeah.
David Griffith. It will be for 6 hours a week at a rate of,
$32 an hour.
yes, at a rate of $32 an hour. It's for a 4-year term commencing January 1, 2019 and ending December 31, 2022. There'll be no benefits, and he'll be subject to the terms and conditions of the personnel manual.
And beginning next Wednesday,
Beginning,
Wednesday.
okay, that is the 18th.
Any other questions, or?
What
So
resolution
that'll
number
be
is that?
resolution 130?
18 to 130.
So I'll move resolutions 18-118 through 18-130 as stated in the agenda and verbalized by Attorney Pidgeon.
Second.
Committeeman Marino.
Yes.
Committeeman Ray.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dorsey.
Yes.
Mayor Pasurch.
Yes. And at this point, what I'd like to do, and this is my favorite time when we have swearing in of Officer McGuire. And I think we turn the mic over to Chief Naga.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, governing body. I'd like to introduce Officer Brian McGuire. Officer Brian McGuire came on board after we did an extensive application process towards the end of last year. Officer McGuire came in at the top 3 of roughly 40 candidates. We looked for key characteristics or personality traits that we want to bring aboard the Long Hill Township Police Department. The level of professionalism, compassion, and honesty that he possessed during the interview process were top of the line. Officer McGuire started as an intern with the Public Defender's Office in Freehold, New Jersey. He moved on to get his degree from Monmouth University in 2015. During that time, he also worked as a Class 2 officer down in Seaside, and eventually transitioned in 2016 to a Class 2 or Special Law Enforcement Officer Class 2, also in Seaside, before joining Long Hill Police Department. I want to welcome Officer Brian McGuire on board Long Hill Township Police Department. I'm going to ask the family members of Officer McGuire to step up and help him. You guys are going to hold the Bible.
Raise your right hand and put your left hand on the Bible. Right, you're going to repeat after me. I, Brian McGuire, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States
I, Brian McGuire, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of probationary police officer
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of probationary police officer
of the Long Hill Township Police Department according to the best of my ability.
of the Long Hill Township Police Department according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Welcome to the community.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Just give me a second to get in. Exactly this. I didn't see Elizabeth. Bingo. That's exactly what it is. Oh, I apologize. That's exactly right. Yeah, you go back. All right, we can continue at this point. So if I could, I see High School Superintendent Elizabeth Jewett and Business Administrator Timothy Stiles. And do I say that right? I always say Stiles, but
Yes, you do it very well.
it's not an easy name to look at and pronounce correctly.
I know, for years I've dealt with that one. But thank you.
Anyway, so
Tim,
welcome.
he's like, you know, when you get a sty in your eye and it's like that annoying stuff, you know, it's those styes.
I'm going to remember that one. So is he.
Yeah, I get it every day.
Thank you so much for inviting us this evening. We know that you wait with eager anticipation for us to come and give you a little overview of our budget each year. I'm really excited about some of the items that are in our budget for next year regarding enhancements to our school programs. We do have our board president, Peter Fallon, with us. He is a Warren Township resident. And our two board members, our two Long Hill board members, Lisa DeMizio and Chris Collins, send their regards. They both had, Lisa was going to try to come. I know Chris had a conflict. Am I missing a Long Hill board member? And Rita, I knew we had another one. And Rita Barone, one of our newer board members, who joined us from the K-8 board. So they were all an integral part of this process, obviously. Our enrollment for next year is projected to be 1995, so it's dipping a little bit below 2,000. We were at right around 2,200 when I started in the district about 5 years ago. So we've taken a little bit of a drop, and I don't think it's supposed to drop too much more from there, but we'll see.
Depends what goes on.
Depends on some of the building projections in some of the different townships. Two of the enhancements to the budget next year, to the programmatic additions, include the addition of a music technology lab, and our planning behind that is, any of you who have been to the Performing Arts Center at the high school and seen our groups perform, we have very, very talented musicians, both vocally and instrumentally. And what we realized is we also have, as many students as we have involved in our current music programs, there are a number of students that participate in their own garage bands. They write music at home, so they are very musically talented as well. It's just we don't offer something that fits what their level of interest is, so we really wanted to expand our offerings to draw more students in, and so we're going to be adding a music technology lab, and next year we are planning on offering a music tech class as well as keyboarding and guitar. So those are going to be 3 additional courses that we think will draw more students. You know, some of our students currently in the program, I'm sure, will take advantage of those courses as well, but we're hoping that we will reach more students who are not currently involved. And we also are hiring an additional computer science teacher, because our demand for those classes has really blossomed in recent years. In addition to doing coding across our curriculum in our different departments, we've added some different computer science courses.
We are also going to be adding robotics as a course. Right now it is just an after-school club, and the interest level and participation in that is enormous. So we're looking to add that as a course for next year. It's going to start with just a few section offerings, and then we're looking to actually renovate our robotics area and be able to increase offerings in that as well. So those are some of the things included in the budget. As security has obviously been a topic of interest recently, we just wanted to highlight some of that as well. So our budget includes $500,000 devoted for security, and that is not new. That has been in the budget since before I arrived in the district, and really for a number of years before that. I was very fortunate to come into a district where the board and the administration was really committed to providing security in the school, kind of ahead of their time, really. And what that includes is we do have a school resource officer from Warren Township Police that is full-time in the building, as well as 4 full-time and 1 part-time security officer. And 4 of those 5 security officers are retired police officers. In addition to that, we have a lot of other elements to our security infrastructure in the school, including cameras, door locking systems, and things of that nature. And then we get to the student achievement, which it's impossible for me to list all that our students accomplished in everything from athletics to arts to science to math to all of our academic achievements. Just a couple of highlights that we bring up. Combined SAT score, now that it's gone back to 1,600, the average score for the school was 1,208 for the class of 2017. For our AP tests, we continue to increase not just our average scores, but our participation as well. So last year we administered 1,239 AP tests, and nearly 95% of our students earned a score of a 3 or better. And with AP testing, 3 or above, 3 to 5 is what gets you credit in college or exemption from courses. And of those students that took the test, 255 of them earned recognition as AP scholars, including 31 national AP scholars. And that's the most we've ever had. And then when we move to our National Merit Scholarship recognition, that is in regard to PSAT performance. And again, this year we had the most we've ever had. We had 68 students recognized by the National Merit Scholarship Foundation. 53 of those students were commended students, and 15 of them were designated as National Merit semifinalists, and 100% of those 15 students we just recently found out were also named finalists. And we also found out that 3 of those students earned the actual National Merit Scholarship, which in my time there, we have never had students qualify for the $2,500 scholarship from the National Merit Foundation. So our students are continuing to excel in all areas. And those are just a few of the highlights that come out of the budget that Mr. Stiles is going to share more information on.
Thank you, Ms. Jewett, and thank you, Township Committee and the Mayor. Thanks for having us out. It's always a good thing to come out. To me, I tell our board, and I actually had a presentation with school board members. I said, it's always a good thing to go out to the township committees and talk about budget and things like that, just to inform them and let them know. We do an awful lot together on a day-to-day basis. We work with your police departments, with your recreation departments. We use fields with one another, so it's always a good thing that you know what's going on with our budget. Our budget this year is actually down 2.7%, but I put an asterisk on that. It's $46 million. Remember last year we had that very unique transaction where I hate to say unique transaction, right, in government spending, but we had a unique transaction. We had that referendum where we essentially went out to the referendum to get our state aid, which we got. We got $360,000 in state aid. We paid off the field using the state aid and capital reserve, our own surplus, so to speak. So that was in last year's budget. So not only was the debt in the budget, but the capital project was in there. So it kind of skews the numbers. We don't actually have a 2.7% decrease. It's actually a little up over 2%, just so you know. I didn't want to make it sound like, okay, it's great to come out and say we're spending 3% less, but it's just an unusual budget transaction that we had last year with the referendum project. So it skews the numbers. But the tax levy is actually up 2%. Last year when we came in, it was 4%. That was something that the board was not thrilled about for the year, and I heard it all year long. So we are not allowed to go anywhere near above 2% for the foreseeable future. One of the things we did this year to help our budget, and one of the big factors in all of our budgets, is health care. We joined the School Health Insurance Fund, and we saved about $600,000 over 2 years. So we were quite happy about that. Next year, we have a guaranteed increase of a little over 4%. So we're thrilled about that. We have a 2-year window that really helped us out quite a bit. That's not on your sheets, by the way. I just added that in. We did get a little more state aid. We got $120,000 more. That brings us up in categorical state aid to $1.2 million. We're happy to get more, but in 2010, just so you know, we were at $1.6 million. So we're not quite up where we were 8 years ago. And then on the tax side of things, let's make sure I get this right. Oh, we also have $359,000 of debt service aid in this budget to offset the debt service payment. That's from that 2013 referendum project, if you guys remember that one. But the tax impact for Long Hill Township homes, for the average home versus average home, is a $36 per year increase. And if you break it down by just 100,000 flat, the rate is 0.0049. That would be $4.87 on $100,000. And we do have information on our website. It's right on the front page under the news. You can just click on there and there's more detail. Also, we have our public budget hearing on April 24th in the Media Center. Obviously, you're welcome to come. I know it's very exciting to come, but you can also watch it on the video on the website. So, either way, if you're so inclined, please come and we'll have a little bit more of a thorough presentation for you. But again, I thank you for your time and for everything you do for us.
So if I could just ask a couple questions. First off,
I'm supposed to say that.
yeah.
Any committee members want to?
Yes, I have one,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Just to go back a little bit, you now stream your meetings? Is that what I just heard?
We don't live stream
Not
them,
live.
but we record them and they are all on our website.
Okay, so recorded, and then we can go to the website
Yes.
and pick them up. Okay. So people can watch high
If you're
school
having trouble
board.
falling asleep at night, I've heard it works well.
Well, our meetings, our committee meetings, and our K-8 meetings are all broadcast live
Okay.
from here. So that's why I'm reiterating it. So now people can see the high school meetings in Long Hill Township by going to the website, although they're not live.
Yes.
You mentioned 1,995 students. Just out of curiosity, what is your effective capacity of that facility?
The capacity is 2,500.
That's by the state measure, or is that your effective?
That's it's by the state measure that the architect, when they did the long-range plan, that's the number they calculated using the state formula. I can tell you that we were just about at 2,300, and it was tight. If we could probably fit in realistically 2,400, 25 is a little tough.
So 300-400 kids, more capacity is available.
Yeah.
And do you talk to the sending districts about what their numbers are and their trends at all to see what the
Yes.
enrollment is? Because I know Long Hill has sort of turned the corner, and our kindergarten, first grades are up slightly, not 10 years ago numbers, but slightly.
Warren is the one that we have to keep an eye on right now. Warren has dropped significantly in their lower grades. They have much lower numbers. However, there is a lot of talk about the low-income housing, and they have property to build on. So,
Yeah, they've got quite a large allocation on their hands over there. We not so much.
I know, and Greenbrook as well, and Watchung as well. But Warren is the one we have to really look at.
You mentioned you changed health insurance. So is that the state health insurance plan that you're talking about, or is that the one you left?
No, we were actually private with Aetna. And what we did is we pooled with other school districts in a health insurance fund, a HIF. Similar to a joint insurance fund for your property and casualty insurance. It's mostly southern school districts, but our broker turned us on to it, and it's so far it's been very, very good. We moved in January. We were supposed to go up 9%. We actually went down 2%. We actually had a decrease.
Because you have a good experience rating?
Yes. And we were an attractive candidate for that health insurance fund. That health insurance fund's been around for 10 years.
But it's not a self-insured or self-funded?
It's essentially self-funded, but it has that
An administrator,
reinsurance.
yeah. So hopefully some of our K-8 members are watching this, because I know they're impacted quite severely on health insurance.
You know what? It's the largest number that can swing that budget for us. There's no question about that.
Right. Yeah. And lastly, on aid, you mentioned 120,000 increase this year, and an additional 350 for the debt service. Is that right?
Not additional 350. We had 350 last year too. It comes every year.
Right, but it's 120 in aid plus the 350.
Correct.
Right.
That's
So you're
correct.
150,000, but it's still down over several years ago, several hundred thousand.
Correct.
And that's, so of your budget, do you talk about how much is raised by taxes and how much is aid? Is it like 98% or something like that?
Well, it depends on how you look at Greenbrook. We have a send receive with Greenbrook. We get $8 million from them in tuition. Those folks would tell you that's their tax money.
Right.
But essentially it's tuition. So we get $8 million from that and about $31 million from taxes.
Right.
So most of it primarily is property tax and tuition from Greenbrook.
Right. So we should write our state legislators for additional state aid for our schools, basically.
We're happy what we have, but we should be getting more. Yes, correct. We should do that.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Can I ask, I was going to defer to you guys first, but I'd like to follow up on that. And you see Senator Sweeney has now brought it up today, so what is the full funding? And it always confuses me. What is the full
that number
funding
for us?
number for?
The 120 should have been 4 times that amount. The 120 increase should have been 4 times that amount.
Okay, and you're currently getting 1.2 million or?
1.2.
1.2.
So we should have got almost $500,000 more.
Right, it should be somewhere 1.75 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's possible because it appears that's what they're discussing, but that wouldn't be for this budget year, right? It would be for next year, or is it possible for this year?
From my understanding, from listening to the senator, was that they were incrementally going to try to, like, we got 1/4 of what we should have gotten.
Okay.
In terms of an increase. They want to incrementally add to that every year. And I don't know what that increment will be, given the expenses that they have, but.
And again, I'm not like Brendan or Bruce. I don't fully understand school budgets, but from what I read, what Senator Sweeney was saying, that there are districts that are overfunded based on
Right.
the 2008 numbers or whenever that comes from. And in theory, it wouldn't increase the cost. It would just lower the ones. Because I've heard the mayor from Boundbrook speak.
Yeah.
Their flood mitigation situation worked so well that now I think they have 20% more students or 30% more students than they had based on the 08 funding formula, but they haven't increased in state aid.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously they have an incentive
Yeah.
to get this right.
Yeah, that's the idea, that there are, that I've heard that, and I've seen, when the formula came out in the last summer, they had districts who, they actually showed all the districts who lost. One of which was it Jersey City? I know there was, like, Jersey City, Hoboken, some of those lost money, which was tough. They found out in June.
Well, I'm from Jersey City, so I can say this. Well, instead of having pilots for all those big, beautiful high-rises that they have, maybe they could pay for their own schools a little bit more. And do you have, because I have a couple more, is that okay?
No.
And, well, actually, just one more. And if in any way this compromises school security, you don't have to answer it. And the school resource officer and the guards that are there, I think the 4 or 5 guards that you have there, are they armed?
So the school resource officer is armed. He's a police officer. I do not share the information regarding the other security officers in the interest of security.
And that's completely understandable. I remember several years back, I was on the committee, I don't know if it was maybe 10, 11, 12, when it first came up as an idea, and I guess it was before Newtown, it made me uncomfortable to think that there was, a gun inside the schools. Now I am a strong supporter of it, so.
Yeah, the conversation surrounding it is very different than it was even, 4 or 5 years ago.
For unfortunate but obvious reasons.
I have just a couple more, if I could. Sure. You mentioned the 2 new programs, the music and the
Yes.
computer science program. We did a piano lab, I believe, probably about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. So I applaud you for instituting something like that. I know it was well
Lisa
received
talked
in
about
our
that fondly, actually.
in our middle school, and it was a very successful program. And being a computer science major in college, I applaud you for going in that direction. More and more is technology is taking over our lives. So I'm glad to see that you guys are starting to look at that as training our youth. So
the students are really driving it. We had it was a Sunday in December, I believe, where we had 80 students from middle school through high school in the high school on a Sunday voluntarily with their computers, with their laptops for an all-day hackathon, which is a computer coding event. And we had grad students and college students from Rutgers here to help facilitate sessions for the students. And it was students, all different levels. Students who had never coded before and wanted an introduction to it, to students who had been coding programs, and and there was a competition that day. And it was very cool to walk into the PAC on a Sunday and see all of these students, because it started off with a panel of computer scientists, speaking to the students about some of the different things that they could do. And to see them all engaged and then, participate
all engaged.
in these sessions.
They wear headsets and look at their computer screens. What do you mean engaged?
So, but it's definitely exploding. So it's
good. I'm glad to hear it, and I support the efforts.
Great, thank you.
So, and I'm being nosy, how many students come from Greenbrook?
It's a little over 4. I think about 420.
Yeah, because it's about 100 per class.
And because I was curious what the per head, is that cost similar to is that how you calculate that? Is it based on what it costs the other students?
No, not really. It's cost per pupil, but there's minus a few things that are in there. One of the things is transportation, because they do their own transportation.
Gotcha.
And then some of the special ed costs we break out separately. We do charge them for that, but it's a little different. There's a few things that they wouldn't have, and then there's I think it's the principal on the bonds they don't pay for.
Gotcha. I think on behalf of the committee, congratulations. It sounds like wonderful things are happening at the high school.
And a great budget. Thank you. Thank you for taking it easy on us.
Well, we really appreciate this community support that we have in all 4 communities, and especially from Long Hill. It allows us to really excel at the high school, and allows the students to excel when they have the support of the community. So thank you very much.
And congratulate the students for us as well.
We definitely will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's something I wanted to ask. All right, so here's the thing. We have 5 ordinance introductions this evening. Typically, we don't invite public comment for introduction because public comment would come upon second reading. But tonight, just very briefly, if anybody wanted to come up from the public now, we're going to do that now, on the ordinances. Of course, there will be public comment later on any topic. So if anybody would like to come up at this point on the ordinances. Seeing none, what I'll do is the first reading, introduction, adopting, and hopefully I am on the first one. Oh, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Why don't we do liaison reports now? So I'll start with Matt because he's got pictures over there.
No, I don't have pictures. The DPW is still doing all the cleanups from the storms, so stuff's starting to slowly disappear. They've been doing it basically 6 days a week, and that's all they've been doing. So other things are kind of getting neglected just due to the severity of the storm. Mulch goes on sale, or it's available for pickup April 27th, and due to the storm, there'll be more mulch than normal, or wood chips. And I think they said they're doing the county roads last. So Valley Road, if people wonder why they still see branches out there, they're doing that one last. Obviously, it's a bigger safety concern. They got to put up cones and things like that and be more mindful of what they're doing than they do on a side street. And that's all I have.
Did you have a question for Matt?
Oh, I don't know if I have an answer for you, but try.
So coming to, please state your name and address, please.
David Hand, Sterling. That's great with the brush clean-up. We were one of the first, which is tremendous. But then there's that second little storm that came down just recently, so I've just put some extra on the side.
They've been.
Are you going to come around again? That's just
no, they have been around again. Actually, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, they've been around some neighborhoods more than once. Okay. So
I may expect to see it go as well.
Yeah.
My suggestion, because he's not here this evening, just put it on Cornell Schuler's lawn.
I thought about that.
Would it be appropriate, Matt, to have residents send an email to DPW? Or
he asked not to.
I can't say not to, but he's probably going to get 1,000 emails. I don't know. I don't know what their schedule is or what part of the neighborhood they are, and I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
But I know they're not abandoning the project, because I know earlier there was a concern that it was supposed to end a week and a half ago or 2 weeks, and people got all up in arms and were like, no, it's going to get taken care of, just as promised. The other thing is, obviously, there's still potholes from the storms and things. Just please report them on the, I think is there a link on the website to report potholes? Yeah, if there are potholes and things like that, they are going to get taken care of. But as I said, the branches, that's basically all they've been doing for 3 weeks. So if they see potholes, report it and it will get fixed.
Okay, I'd actually just like to, say that congratulations to DPW, because they have done a terrific job in clearing up all the brush that was brought down on those storms. I know I had a huge pile outside of my house, and it disappeared within a couple of hours. So it's a great job. But as far as liaison reports, I just have one. I attended the HPAC meeting last Wednesday, and they're talking about quite an interesting project, and I said I would mention it tonight, and perhaps I'll also talk to Dennis about putting on Long Hill TV. Essentially, they would like to reach out to any residents who might have any historical artifacts that are Long Hill Township related, and who would like to donate it to HPAC. HPAC would take them, preserve them, and also establish the provenance of the artifact, and it would be a good way of seeing it displayed over time, and so I'll. As I say, I don't know if we can put it on the website, put it on Long Hill TV, the contact information for that. So that's it.
We heard from the high school tonight on their budget. It looks like it's going to be very close to a half of a percentage point. The K-8 district is working on their budget. I believe that it will be above 2%. I would recommend people contact the K-8 board to find out more information. But they are still working on it. and I'm sure there's going to be additional changes, but their largest challenge is health insurance, as we heard with the high school. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Just a couple of things, and I want to thank Governor Murphy for this. His office has been in touch. It started pretty consistently during the storms, but as a result, one of his representatives in the office, Robert Field, called me the other day, and we were speaking about a way out, which is Long Hill's efforts regarding opioids. And then on Monday this past week, no caller ID came up on my phone. I picked it up, and it was in fact Governor Murphy, and he was commending Long Hill for its efforts and emphasizing they had just announced that he had committed $100 million to this effort. And I believe they're going to set up a task force, and Long Hill will be involved in that if and when it's up and running. I guess they have to get through the budget cycle, et cetera. So we'll be involved in that task force. So it's kind of a good thing for not a good thing. So we'll be involved in that. And then when I was speaking to Rob yesterday, he asked me what was on our minds, just general conversation, and I brought up COAH fair share, and I had mentioned we were going to have a meeting last night, and there were some residents that had questions and concerns and frustrations regarding it, and they're going to form a mayoral task force regarding fair share and COAH, and Rob correctly pointed out, and we've talked about this as recently as last night, when we pick on the court, the Supreme Court, quite often, and whoever happens to be in the governor's office at that time. But this is really a legislative issue primarily, and I've spoken to Senator Kaine and Senator Sweeney on this on numerous occasions. So that mayoral, task force will be formed. We'll be involved in that as well. So we're staying in touch, close touch with the governor's office on these two particular issues. And at that, I think we can move on to ordinance introductions. And let's get to whereas. I know there's a lot of whereas. Speaking of COAH, here we go. Thank you. I saw some whereases before, so that's what confused me. All right, so...
Mayor, before you introduce that ordinance, these were 4 ordinances prepared by the Planning Board with Kevin O'Brien's assistance, and I cut and pasted them and plugged them into one comprehensive ordinance. But I did get a memorandum from Mr. O'Brien today making 2 changes as a result of last night's Planning Board meeting. One was adding to the mixed-use overlay zone, which is section 122.15.3, just adding, I believe it's a small lot on the Tifa property, block 10100, lot 7.01. And then there was a typo in paragraph 7, which says commercial buildings may only face Division Avenue. It had of, and it's meant to be or, so it meant facing Division Avenue or the New Jersey transit tracks. I've sent Debbie a revised ordinance, but so when you introduce it tonight, it will have those changes already in it.
And Jack, and each ordinance was still introduced, so we've got 413-18, and we'll do each individually coming up.
No, all of the Mount Laurel ordinances are contained in this comprehensive ordinance. They're just, I thought it would be clearer to see it all together.
Yep.
It's exactly as it came from the planning board, but it's just, consolidated.
And just for, to point it out, I'm going to goof when I move along, and Debbie's going to yell at me and get me to the right page. So that's the way this will work. And I did want to thank, first off, we have several members of the planning board who are here tonight. Chair Alan File, Vice Chair David Hands, Tom Jones is here as well. They did a phenomenal job. Oh, Dennis, thank you. What did I do? I didn't thank you during Quinn and Riley, because you're always helping, and I often forget. So, and Dennis Sandow, of course, for all the work. And I especially want to add thanks to the board consultants, who did an incredible job of explaining what is often a complex and frustrating subject. And I think, and I strongly advise anybody who has questions regarding Mount Laurel, COAH, Fair Share, you can, that's what that is, to watch and I don't know, when will that be up on the website?
It was up at midnight.
It was up at midnight. So watch that, especially the beginning part when Yolanta Miseraz, I guess the board attorney, gave an overview of how we, the state, not we, Long Hill, arrived at this point, and then gave very specifics about our obligation. And our obligation is, yes, Mr. Sandow?
You want to pull that piece, the ordinance piece out and put it somewhere up front?
I would love to put it, if we could, put that part under affordable housing. And for those who are watching, or watch in future days, I strongly advise you to watch that 10-minute piece. It's easy to understand language, and I think you'll get a better idea of why we are where we are. So we have, 54 obligation if they're rental, 72 if they are owner-occupied. And I should mention Jessica Caldwell and Jack Pigeon, who did the negotiations on this with Fair Share. And just a lot of work over probably 18 months. I don't know how long you did it.
Yep.
About 18 months to come up with what we think was or is, and it's a trite phrase, but what is our fair share? I think it accomplishes what is the intent of Fair Share, originally Mount Laurel and then COAH. Some other towns weren't so fortunate. Maybe they had not kept up with their obligations. Long Hill always did, and I think we were complimented
Yes.
for always being proactive in staying up with this process. And I don't know what other towns did, so I can't speak to that, but our neighboring towns have obligations that are quite staggering. I think Warren's is near 1,000. Burnett's Township is
Near 900.
near 900. Chatham Township is, I think, near 400 or somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
mid-threes, I think.
Summit is near 600. And keep in mind, those numbers that I'm saying, you have to divide those by 15% for rental or 20% for owner-occupied. So by way of example, you're talking Warren might have an obligation of
5,000.
more, actually. It's more like 7,500.
Right.
And we talked about it last night, but it's worth re-mentioning. There are some that came up and said, why don't we fight? And the answer to that is Google, Princeton, West Windsor, Fair Share Housing. Just Google that, and you will see those two towns chose to fight. Princeton thought their obligation would come in around 150, maximum 250. It came in at 750 plus, I think.
Yes.
So-
Plus they had prior round obligations that they had not yet satisfied.
Yeah, right, so
So
1,000.
it comes
so
up to 1,000.
1,000 units, so
Yeah.
you're talking about 7,500 units. West Windsor, which, I mean, this has to be a joke, but it's not. Theirs is 1,500, which comes out to, was it 10,000? 10,000.
And there are currently 10,000 housing units in West Windsor.
So we double their.
And that's counting one large Mount Laurel development that they lost in court 10 years ago.
So the moral of the story is, try to reach a common ground. That's what we did, and so our obligation is 54 rental, 72 owner occupied, and that's how we arrived at this point. So, that being said, I guess I'm looking for comments, questions, or a motion.
Motion to adopt ordinance 413-18 as stated in the agenda for first reading with second reading on May 9th, 2018.
Second?
Alderman Moreno?
Yes.
Alderman Ray?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dorsey?
Yes.
Mayor Rizzuto?
Yes. So Debbie, any suggestions as to what page I can turn to?
16.
Oh, okay, then I was kind of right. So Township of Long Hill Ordinance Number 415-18. Jack, did you want to go over this at all? This is the authorization of issuance. I'm not saying you need to, I was just,
Oh, this is the ban one? Yeah, I had an earlier copy of the agenda.
All right, so I'll just read it.
Development fees.
Development fees I have next, yeah, 414.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm in the right place here.
Jack, whatever I haven't done, whatever I haven't done to you for you to treat me so disrespectfully.
No, with all due respect.
All right, and in fact, to be fair, Debbie did tell me page 16, so. Township of Long Hill Ordinance Number 414-18 concerning affordable housing development fees and amending Section 185 of the Township Land Use Ordinance entitled Development Fees.
All this does is development fees are the fees that are imposed on new construction, both residential and commercial, including large additions. They have to pay 1% at the present time. The statute allows up to 1.5%. So all this ordinance does is increases the residential development fee from 1% to 1.5%.
Thank you, Jay. Questions, comments?
I'll move ordinance 414-18 as stated in the agenda upon first reading, second reading scheduled for May 9th, 2018.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Now we're on page 17. Township of Long Hill Ordinance Number 415-18. This one I'll read. Bond ordinance appropriating $641,182 and authorizing the issuance of $593,232 bonds or notes of the township for various improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the Township of Long Hill and the County of Morris, New Jersey. Questions, comments? Motion?
Just comment on this, I guess. This is for our capital, and what this does is this keeps our borrowing limit under our $2.1 million threshold, which is a self-imposed threshold that we like to keep, so that we keep our debt service to a minimum within our budget. And we expect that in three more years, I believe, one of the debt service bond payments drops off. And we will have a much lower debt service as part of our municipal budget. So again, this is just to do capital and is within our self-imposed debt service limit.
Thank you, Bruce.
So I'll move, with no other questions, I'll move ordinance 415-18 as stated in the agenda upon first reading, second reading scheduled for May 9th, 2018.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Page 22, Township of Long Hill Ordinance Number 416-18. I will read this as well. Bond ordinance providing for the improvement of the sanitary sewage system in and by the Township of Long Hill and the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $7,216,912. Therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $7,216,912 bonds or notes of the township for financing such appropriation.
So Cornell spoke very extensively on this at our budget introduction. Essentially, what we're doing here is we're taking the Remington-Vernick and the Kleinfelder reports for capacity assurance efforts at the plant. We're combining those, borrowing those numbers, essentially because we've got low-cost bonding to do these capital improvements. Right? This doesn't include the traditional operating costs of the sewer.
So this is pure capital
Yep.
infrastructure?
Yep. Right, this is a combination of the Kleinfelder and the Remington-Vernick reports.
Thank you, Bruce. Any other questions, comments?
No.
Motion?
Move ordinance 416-18 as stated in the agenda upon first reading and second reading scheduled for May 9th, 2018.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Page 26, gotcha. Page 26, Long Hill Township Ordinance Number 417-18, ordinance providing for various improvements in and by the Township of Long Hill in the County of Morris, New Jersey, and appropriating $202,000
$50, therefore from various funds of the township. Again, questions, comments?
Just, this is again, capital, moving it from different funds as part of the budget process.
Any other? Motion?
Move ordinance 417-18 as stated in the agenda upon first reading. The second reading scheduled for May 9th, 2018.
Second.
Committeeman Moreno.
Yes.
Committeeman Ray.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bursey.
Yes.
Mayor Patricia.
Yes. Page 28. Township of Long Hill Ordinance Number 410-18, an ordinance concerning performance and maintenance, nope.
Go to the next one.
We could go to the bottom of 27, we're pushing this adoption due to the amendment. There's a motion to amend, as we asked.
Second reading.
Yeah, I discovered a second section that was redundant and inconsistent with this. So what this does is adds the repealer of that section to the ordinance.
Now, that is for,
This ordinance amends the performance and maintenance guarantee sections of our land use ordinance to comply with the new state law,
Yep.
which makes significant changes to the whole process.
Right.
okay. So then, simply, we're just going to, well, I need a motion to move it to April 25th?
So moved.
Second?
Committeeman Moreno.
Yes.
Well, it's to amend,
Amend
it's
the
to
ordinance.
amend and continue the public hearing on the ordinance as amended.
Can that be one vote?
Yes.
So you have to, it's amending the ordinance and then.
Right, you know what? Rather than me ad-libbing, I'll read it, and then therefore I can't make a mistake, or if there is a mistake, I'll just blame somebody else. Motion amending performance guarantee ordinance number 410-18 and continuing the public hearing to April 25th on the ordinance as amended.
Correct. And Debbie will publish notice of the ordinance as amended.
Committeeman Moreno.
Yes.
Committeeman Ray.
Yes.
Committeeman, Deputy Mayor Bursey.
Yes.
And Mayor Patricia.
Yes. All right. All right, so where are we?
All the way in the back.
Do you have a number?
39.
39, that works for me.
Let's see.
Okay, old business, new business. None? So I'll bring up something that I had brought up earlier. Passaic Avenue is a street that is involved in the bike race, the annual bike race, and it was supposed to be paved last year. It was put off for various reasons. Now, I would like to do it sooner, but I don't know how everyone up here feels about that, because what we're trying to do, or at least what I'm supporting, is the idea that the bike race could take place earlier than it typically does take place, which I think typically it's the last week in July, and what we're trying to do is to move it up.
To
But,
when? In June?
When would, June 24, so we would need it paved, well, sooner.
So I believe we talked about this at the last meeting, and we had asked Nancy to look into it with Director Sweeney as to its feasibility. So I'll ask Nancy to opine.
Right. So on Passaic Avenue, the DPW has to upgrade 11 catch basins. They have to videotape all of the stormwater pipes. That takes time. And they are currently, as was mentioned earlier, continuing branch pickup. And they will be doing hazardous tree pruning until May, and then grass cutting and the other normal things that are seasonal come up. So it's very difficult to fit that into their schedule, the catch basins and the videotaping the stormwater pipes. In addition, Tom has said that July and August are the best time to pave. You need really hot weather. May and June are the busiest times for their department. He does not want to pave while school is still in, and he is adamantly opposed to paving Passaic in June. And so for all of the, I'm relying on his 20 years experience as, you know, as a DPW employee in making that call. And, you know, I informed Dennis that, you know, he's need to move ahead with July, the original date for the race, because there's no way they're going to be able to pave in May or the beginning of June. I mean, I think that it's a fair statement that Tom Sweeney knows paving better than anybody else. And if he's not comfortable paving it and in addition, he also told me that there's no way that Tilcon, who's going to do the paving, is going to come out and just do one street. And he's not going to move up his whole paving schedule. He just can't do it. He just doesn't have the time.
That's unfortunate, but, I mean, the realities kind of influence what happens. Dennis, do you know if the bike race can still take place, I think, and on its normal date?
It will still take place on its normal date, but it will be oppressively hot, which is what we were trying to avoid by moving it forward.
Well, look, I'm sorry, I would like to, and maybe in the well, once it's paved this year, it'll be perfect.
Once it's paved, we can move it, but this is the year when we make up for the sins of having to cancel the race last year.
So is this the 25th anniversary in year 26?
Either the 27th or the 28th, depending on how we number it. It's either 27B or 28.
Well, you could be like Apple, where you just skip certain numbers. Why don't you go to 30, right? I mean, Apple skips 8 and 9, and they go right to 10. I'm not trying to make light of this. I mean, I think the bike race is a wonderful community event. It's one of the things that best show off this town. So,
well, I don't know how much earlier notice I could have given that this would happen. Probably in retrospect, we should have paved Passaic Avenue last fall, so we wouldn't have to go through this.
yeah, it's New Jersey American Water offered to help us out on that because I guess they had Montana in here at the time.
As I said, where there's a will, there's a way, but apparently we're just not going to find that way this year, and I am sadly disappointed.
Dennis, thank you. Yeah, I think you know that this committee loves the bike race. Maybe this year the Township Committee will challenge. Who can we challenge? I'm not afraid of the police. If the police want to race against us, that's okay with me.
I've often suggested that the Township Committee form a team and race against the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed, I've offered it to them, and they were very, very unenthusiastic. But maybe you could use your contacts over there to fire them up. Maybe a 3-man team from each side.
I'll be the captain from the sidelines rooting on Bruce, Brendan, and Matt.
Oh no,
Should be a 5-man team.
it's going to be too hot, so I'm out.
Can I use my kid's dirt bike? I don't own a bicycle.
Depending on the tax increases, one side or the other will get a lot of cheering.
And for a snarky remark, I think Attorney Jack Pigeon should be in the race.
No, it's only 5 men.
All right, so announcements, and I forgot to bring that, and this is a very, very important thing. JCP&L Life Support Equipment Notice, and I'm glad the chief and his team is with us tonight. If you report to JCP&L life support needs, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, either way, if you report it to JCP&L, it gets reported to us. If it gets reported to us, we report it to JCP&L.
That's not correct. They have to report it direct to JCP.
Okay, so it has to go
They have to accept it as a voluntary agreement arrangement that they volunteer that information to JCP. We don't
And so during, I guess it was Quinn and Riley, we found a few more that need to be registered. So please, please, please. And if you don't know who to call, you can call the administrator, Nancy Malul. You can call me. We'll get you the proper information, but please register. That's a great public service that JCP&L provides, and they will get in touch with us, right? So once you register with JCP&L, you will be registered with Long Hill Township, and that helps our OEM and our CERT locate you when we have storm outages and frankly, when a lot of our trees fall down like they did on Doherty and places like that.
Arbor Day is April 17th, if we have any trees left in town. If not, plant a couple. And then the third announcement plays right into that. The 2018 Challenge Grant is in progress. There are still 14 trees available, $175 per tree, which is less than half of what the tree and the actual planting costs. So, and the Shade Tree Commission, of which I'm a member, will work with you on a type of tree that will be planted. Location must be viewable from the street. Application is available online. Payment can be made in the clerk's office. Debbie is willing to take the check.
Guy, does that include planting or?
It does.
It does?
It
So
does.
the Shade Tree Commission, they'll, wow.
The DPW.
No, DPW.
For DPW, I think DPW does everything. Did they fix computers too? Boy, I mean, you know, and I want to add to what everyone said earlier. DPW has done an incredible job. And to point, you know, committee members aren't favored, even though Brendan's were gone as soon as he put them out. Myersville hasn't been visited yet, which is perfectly fine with me. DPW will in fact get there. And I want to reiterate, towns are not required to. Some do, some don't. Burnouts Township, for example, does not pick up anything. Most towns pick up only branches, which are neatly placed at curbside. Tom Sweeney and his team volunteered, and that was an awful noble thing to do, but maybe it added to how long this is taking. In addition to the snow that we had, was it last week? Was it yesterday? I don't even remember. Longville Township is picking up not just branches, but logs and other debris. And please, you know, this is being done on the honor system. No cutting down trees, trimming that weren't storm-related. This is just storm-related tree debris. At this point, I would like to open the meeting to the public. Remarks on any matter that is. Please limit comments to three minutes, although I don't see a lot of residents here. But just out of respect and to keep things as they are at each meeting, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I know we know each other, Chuck, but if you could state your name and address for the record.
Charles Aronowitz, Millington. This committee never ceases to amaze me. I was at the planning board meeting last night, and the comment was made discussing the affordable housing and everything that's going to be presented, and it's the first reading, and there'll be no comments on the first reading. You have to wait till the second. I'm sitting at home watching it, and the first comment is, does anybody have any comments on the first reading? Are you kidding me? You wonder why you need any comments? You said last night there's no comments till May the 9th. Please respond, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I did in fact say last night there would be public comment tonight. There is no doubt, but when I saw there weren't anybody in the audience, there was no point in waiting. You're here now, you're welcome to comment on it.
Okay, here we go. Ordinance 41618. This committee discussed several meetings ago that we can get a low interest rate equity loan from the DEP. Why aren't we doing that versus bonding $7.2 million?
If Nancy, more than welcome.
We are applying. What this does is it bonding or other financing? It specifically says in here that we are going through the infrastructure bank, which is now known as the I-Bank through the DEP. So we are applying.
Great. On the $7.2 million, I would ask, similar to some of the other ordinances, that we delineate, for example, the phosphorus, the sand screens, the pumps, the I&I. What are we allocating for the $7.2 million? The reason I ask that is when and if you are no longer running and it's 2 years or 3 years from now, the committees that you're replacing, we have that documentation that we're spending, you know, 1.5 on phosphorus, 1.2 on I&I and so forth.
I mean, that's a great idea, but I think we are in fact doing that, but I'll let Nancy.
I didn't read it in the 40-page agenda.
It's not in the bond ordinance. As we move along, there will be a specific list of what needs to be done. The $7.2 million is made up of the initial $3.6 million improvement cost that was laid out in the Kleinfelder study, and then the remainder is the Remington-Vernick, the first 3 years of the Remington-Vernick capital improvements that were in the report from 2012.
Okay, where can the taxpayers read that?
I'm not, well, you can read the reports.
I read the
They're
report.
online, right.
I'm reading this.
Right, so the $3.6 million is in the Kleinfelder report. The remainder is the first 3 years of what Remington-Vernick has put in their report. The actual list of what will be done will be compiled by Kleinfelder, will be overseeing the $3.6 million improvements to the actual plant. And then we are in the process of determining whether they will be the people who will be overseeing the Remington-Vernick improvements, most of which are I&I work, slip lining. When that's determined, who's doing the work, there will be a list of what that work is. So it'll be available to the public, but it's not going to be in this ordinance.
I would recommend for the final reading that you outline these expenditures instead of lump sum in $7.2 million.
So those expenditures have not been, they're not defined yet.
Well, how do you come up with 7.2?
I just told you, $3.6 million from the Kleinfelder study and the first 3 years from the Remington-Vernick study. That is a basic amount that this committee has determined out of all the 4 options that were discussed at the last meeting. This is a basic amount to get them started in capital. So what that money is exactly spent on is loosely based on, well, more than loosely, it's mostly based on what is in those 2 reports, but the actual step-by-step, exactly what will be done, will not be determined until Kleinfelder has put together the design standards for what they're going to, they have to get the design approved by the DEP. There are a lot of steps, so there's no way we could put in here exactly what it is, but by the time the money is spent, everybody will know exactly what they're spending their money on. It's just not going to be in here. This is the first step, what we have to do in order for this committee to authorize the eventual borrowing of that money. The first step is for Kleinfelder to first step is for the DEP to approve our capacity assurance report. Second step is for a design to be put together by Kleinfelder. Third step is for the DEP to approve that design. In the meantime, we have to have our wastewater management plan adopted. We have to get our NJDPES permit approved. There are a lot of steps. So the bottom line is that no, we cannot put it in here. This authorizes this committee to borrow money, which is only a small portion of what this whole thing is going to cost over the next 20 years. This gives them the ability to borrow the rest, to borrow some of it, and then the rest is going to be raised through operating, through fee increases, which was discussed at the last meeting as well.
So we don't know what it's going to cost. How did we come up with the 7.2?
As I said, 3.6 is from the Kleinfelder study, and the remainder is 3 years of the capital from the Remington-Vernick study. Those are estimates. This is an accounting, this is a budgeting mechanism. We have to give, this committee has to give authorization to borrow the money so we can get this started, so that DEP will be satisfied.
I have zero confidence that the phosphorus, the I&I, the sand screens, and the pumps are going to cost $7.2 million. Zero confidence.
Well, there are several engineers who would beg to differ with you.
You want to make a bet?
$7.2 million bet? Sure.
Yeah, sure. I'll make it with you.
You think they're going to cost more or they're going to cost less?
A lot more. That's why I want it delineated, so we can say we proposed in May 9th that it's going to cost, for the phosphorus, $1.2 million. It's going to cost whatever. And 3 years from now, we're saying, what happened?
It's all in the study. It's all in the Kleinfelder study, with the,
I've
where
been
the
in the
phos-
consulting
what the-
business for 40 years.
Okay, I'm not going to argue. I can't
You
defend
can't,
what their
exactly.
prices are. That's what they are. And this is to get
All
us
right, my
started.
final recommendation is to the Township Committee, you delineate the 7.2 as you know it now. If you don't want to do it, that's fine, okay? Next topic. I sent each of you a month ago pictures from Valley Road of the tree stumps left by Jersey Central Power and Light contractors. They're still there. What are we going to do?
I apologize, Chuck. Where what's
It's
the
across
location?
from the garage at Armenti's on Valley Road. There's tree stumps that are this big on the side of Valley Road, and they're up on Long Hill Road.
Jack, legally.
And we complimented Jersey Central for doing such a great job.
Well, I mean, that's a curiosity to me. What happens in the situation where, because typically they won't take out the stump.
Pardon me? They're on the ground.
No, but I mean, are they still planted or they ripped out?
They cut them down. They're this big across from Armenti's garage on Valley Road.
That empty lot there.
Yeah.
I'll get in touch with the, I mean, they're required.
You
to
need
take
the
that out.
pictures again? I'll send them.
No, it's okay, Chuck. Actually, do me a favor. Would you mind sending, you don't have to send it to
Sure, I
everybody.
could do that.
Just send it to me.
No charge. Last night at the planning board, there was lengthy discussions on the potential conflict of interest of Mr. Don Richardson serving on the master plan committee and the planning board when he was president of WMAF. I may have the wrong initials, but it's the company that did the study for the PRISM purchaser of the Tifa project. They're being retained for the LSRP, and in my opinion, it's clearly a conflict of interest. So my question for this board is, this committee, what are you going to do with Mr. Richardson? I can give you a recommendation.
Well, let's hear from Township Attorney Jack Pitchen first.
Yeah, at this point, it's really up to the planning board. They're a semi-autonomous body, and it's for them. They have their own counsel, that's correct. And it's up to the planning board. It would be improper for this township committee to comment at this point in time.
Mr. Pigeon, let me remind you that this committee appointed Mr. Richardson to the master plan committee and to the planning board.
Correct. But there was no problem. If there is a conflict, and I'm not going to comment one way or the other, it didn't conflict him out from serving on the planning board or the master plan committee. If he had specific conflicts with respect to a particular application, that's a different issue. But that wouldn't affect the ability of the mayor to appoint Mr. Richardson or anyone else to the board itself.
His client, PRISM, is one of the 4 places for affordable housing. He represented him on the ordinances are in this 40 pages tonight and approved it, okay? He's getting, his company of 40 people, which he's president of, is getting revenue and will continue to get revenue. If you don't think that's a conflict of interest, real or perception, it is.
My opinion is irrelevant at this point in time. And
Well, I'll give you mine.
But you could do it, but I can't because I represent the township committee.
Understand.
And so I really can't comment on conflict, potential conflict at the planning board.
And Chuck, I appreciate that you've expressed this opinion, well, here tonight, and of course last night as well, so it is on the record.
So here's the issue, Mr. Pigeon. This township committee appointed this individual to the master plan and the planning board. There's a conflict of interest. It's revealed in his financial disclosure statement. And now you're pushing it to the planning board. I don't think so.
No, as I just explained, that if it is a conflict, did not prevent the mayor from appointing Mr. Richardson to the planning board. That's one of many applications and one of many issues they deal with. So it may be appropriate in the abstract for any member of the planning board to recuse him or herself if he's got a conflict, but that doesn't bar him from serving on the board.
But he didn't recuse himself.
But that's a planning board issue.
You know, where's my logic?
I'm not sure.
Am I thinking illogically tonight or yesterday?
There are two separate issues. One, whether he's eligible to serve on the board, and whether he should recuse him. The second issue is to whether he should recuse himself on a particular application. The only issue that involved the Township Committee was the original appointment. And there was no conflict which disqualified him from serving on the planning board.
Well, let me tell you this. His disclosure statement filed in 2017 said he works for the consulting company that did the study for Tifa, or PRISM.
Again, that wouldn't disqualify him from serving on the planning board and hearing applications in which he had no conflict. As I said, I'm not commenting on whether he had a conflict on that. You know, that's for you to comment and for the planning board to deal with.
This committee and the planning board has great exposure. I've talked to the state. You will all be interviewed, and this is not good for each of you. So you need to take some action. What do you think, Mr. Dorsey? You're an attorney.
I understand conflicts very well. Some people on the Board of Ed do not. However, if they interview me, fine. I have nothing to hide. Bring in Bob Mueller. I don't care.
I'm not going to go that far. I wish this, you know, I don't like the exposure you put us as taxpayers on in this. And it scares me. And it's not good.
Chuck, thank you.
It's not a laughing matter.
No, it's not. And actually, speaking of exposure, there was a letter to the Echoes. Jack, could you opine on that? Because a lot of people read the Echo Sentinel. This is the letter from Mr. Lorber wrote a letter fearing that any kind of exposure that the town might have as regards the Tifa property, or any property for that matter.
Right. The Tort Claims Act protects a municipality from claims for either issuing or denying approvals, licenses, permits, and that sort of thing. So from a legal liability perspective, the township has no liability. You know,
so
unless there's something intentional or malicious or something like that.
So for anybody who read the letter, and Mr. Lorber, as well-intentioned as his letter was, the answer to that is the town is not liable.
That's correct. The town is protected by the Tort Claims Act.
Chuck,
Comment on this.
there's nobody here for you to borrow time from tonight.
I know. Charles Reynolds, Millington, 2015, the dance studio on the Tifa property had a sewer break. I called the township and said, we got a problem. No one responded. I went and took pictures of the activity, okay, that was going on there, and there was asbestos flying through the air. We eventually got the EPA involved, not the DEP, the EPA, and I shared my pictures with them and the contractor. The EPA representative came down here and reprimanded the township for what they didn't do, and they also reprimanded the contractor for what he didn't do. So if you think, Mr. Pigeon, we have no liability, the EPA thinks you do.
Thank you, Chuck. So, I apologize, Mr. Sam. I always forget you. You hide behind the TV, so I don't see you. Where's your Yankee #1?
Yeah.
I do not hide. That is a statement that other members of the public might make about the Township Committee, but you can't make it about me. On a lighter note, a reminder that 11 days from now is the annual street fair. Sunday the 22nd of April, we're going to have a street fair in Sterling. Public is invited, all of them. Everybody in town is welcome to come. Bring your friends and neighbors from out of town. The trains will be running. You can come by train if you don't want to look for a parking place. This year we have 2 new businesses on Main Avenue. who will be introducing themselves to the public. We have All American Pizza. Many of you have already been in there. And we have Dr. Bridget Lang, who's opening her dental practice on Main Avenue. She'll be there. Dr. Lang is a resident of Gillette, and she is opening her practice in Sterling. And that's wonderful, and we should all give her lots of encouragement and bring her all your bad teeth. In addition, we have a new and potentially exciting vendor. The New Jersey Renaissance Fair will be there. They will be in costume. They will be putting on a presentation during the day on the entertainment stage, and they'll be up and down the street in costume all day. They want you to come to their fair, which is down about 70 minutes from here, down the Turnpike, the last 2 weekends of May and the first weekend of June, which, if you look at the calendar, is a whole lot cooler to go to a Renaissance Fair in May and June than it is to go up to Tuxedo in August and September. Anybody been there? You haven't been up to Tuxedo, okay.
How many people, I mean, you told me this once before, the average number of people
We anticipate 4,000 people, and that's based on various kinds of unscientific sampling of people who walk past my tent.
And does the Sando guarantee work this year as well regarding weather?
This will be my 27th fair weather event. There is no snow in the forecast.
No, I'm talking precipitation of any kind then.
Possibly branches falling from trees, but that's about it. There are a couple of announcements I'd like to make. One is the parking. As you know, we have parking on the side streets on Essex and Mercer and Morris and Passaic and Warren. But the side streets are posted for one side only, one side parking only on a temporary basis. That's because if we allow parking on both sides of the street, there's only one lane up the middle. And you can't turn around, you can't have cars passing each other, there's pedestrians, there's the need for emergency service vehicles to get in and out. Last year, there were a lot of violations of the no parking on this side rule. And the police department sort of forgave that because we didn't want to make a fuss. But we're going to have to ask people not to park where there is a temporary no parking sign on the one side of the street, whichever side that is. Please respect that. The other thing I'd like to ask is purely administrative. Please ask every department, police, public works, zoning official, construction department, do not allow anybody to mess with Main Avenue between now and then. We had a circumstance a couple years ago where 2 days before the event, one of the utilities began digging up the street and left it open until at about 10 o'clock Friday morning, at which point Mr. Sweeney and I got extremely panicked, and he sent a truck down to emergency patch the opening himself, worked through noon, and just about the time we were finished, the contractor came with his patching equipment. But it was totally out of control. If you see anybody digging on Main Avenue, for God's sakes, arrest them, throw them in jail, do something, but don't let them bust up the street for me, please. We'll see you all on Sunday, the 22nd.
Thank you, Dennis, and I apologize that that was not part of the official announcement, but
I'd rather make it myself.
no doubt, you do a better job. Any other comments from the public? Chief Naga?
3 quick announcements. Still, we have a few residents that are not aware. We have part of the opiate task force way out. We installed a prescription drug collection box at the police station. It's right in our lobby. It is being used quite frequently, but we still have residents that are not aware. Additionally, we just received a go-ahead of the approval to go ahead and do our local prescription drug take back along with the shredded event that the library holds. So it'll be the Saturday, or the 21st, I'm sorry, between 10 and 2 p.m. And then we're also going to do the national prescription drug take back, which is the 28th from 10 to 2 p.m.
So what are those two dates again?
The 21st and the 28th. They'll be posted on our Facebook. We just
Okay.
received the boxes today for the national program. We're also going to do our.
And you have a lot of drugs have been.
We do. We
That's
get a lot of
that's
prescription
outstanding.
drugs. So
You want to bring that out on Sunday?
we have to have approval from the Sheriff's Department that they're going to be able to collect it immediately after. So it took us a little while to get this done. We just received approval yesterday, and then we received the boxes today. So I'm not going to be able to pull it off this Sunday, but we have 2 events. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Seeing no other comments, I'll look for a motion. to
So
adjourn.
moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. I'm sorry, you said that.